So, constructivism points out that learning is an active, constructive process, and the learner is an information constructor. People actively construct or create their own subjective representations of objective reality. New information is linked to their prior knowledge, thus, mental representations are subjective. Here is a word bubble of constructivism talking about all of the key concepts of the theory itself. So, constructivism states that learning is an active, contextualized process of constructing knowledge rather than acquiring it. Each person has a different interpretation and construction of knowledge process. An instructor should never tell students anything directly, but instead should always allow them to construct the knowledge for themselves. So, for example, Professor Ingram would not directly tell us something, but maybe allow us to think about it ourselves and use our prior knowledge. And next this is a bubble of the constructivist theory and how it can be used to help students in the classroom and etc. Next is cognitive load theory. This is a theory that focuses the load on working memory during instruction. John Sweller describes the human cognitive architecture and the need to apply sound instructional design principles based on your knowledge of the brain and memory. So let's first describe the different types of memory and how both are interrelated because schemas held in long-term memory are acting as a central executive directly affect the manner in which information is synthesized in working memory. Then explains the absence of schemas, instructional guidance must provide a substitute for learners to develop either their own schemas. So here is just an image of long-term and working and encoding and retrieving and attempt to focus your attention and what you're hearing. So this is the three cognitive loads, and intrinsic cognitive load is the idea that all instruction has an inherent difficulty associated with it. For example, this could be calculating 5 plus 5. This inherent difficulty may be not altered by an instructor. Extraneous cognitive load is under the control of instructional designers, so it's generated by the manner in which information is presented to learners. Example, the design. So an example of this could be, assume that there are at least two possible ways to describe a triangle, but an instructor could describe a triangle verbally, but to show a diagram of a triangle is much better because the learner does not have to deal with straight, extraneous, unnecessary information. And images, like for me, is better to visualize shapes. And germane cognitive load is encouraged to be promoted, and the load dedicated to the processing, construction, and automation of schemas. While extrinsic load is generally thought to be immutable, instructional designers can manipulate extraneous and germane load. It is suggested that they limit extraneous load and promote germane load. Next is multimedia theory. Multimedia principle states that people learn more deeply from words and pictures than from words alone. However, simply adding words to pictures is not an effective way to achieve this theory in learning. The goal is to instructional media in the light of how human mind works. So there's two separate channels, that is auditory and visual for processing information. And this can be called the dual coding theory, like shown in this chart here. And each channel has a limited finite capacity, similar to Swaller's notion of cognitive load. And learning is an active process of filtering, selecting, organizing, and integrating information based upon prior knowledge. And Mayer's cognitive theory of multimedia learning presents the idea that the brain does not interpret a multimedia presentation of words, pictures, and auditory information in a mutually exclusive fashion, but rather these elements are selected and organized and dynamically to produce logical mental constructs. So this is an example of all the constructing that is going on in this human's head. So that is the three learning theories.